Now that it's spring, a lot of us are adding special events back onto our calendar for the first time in a while. For my younger audience, prom is around the corner, and we're also starting to see weddings pick up over the next couple months. So today I'm going to be sharing the best drugstore makeup for special events. This is a soft glam makeup tutorial that is long wearing, photo friendly, and budget friendly. So let's just get started. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name is Miranda. Welcome to my channel where we talk all things budget beauty. If that sounds interesting to you, then become the newest member of the Slashed Squad by hitting subscribe and the bell icon. So if you watch my videos regularly, this routine is going to look a little different because I am actually going to be starting out with my eyes. Particularly for special events, it's a great idea to start with your eyes so you don't have to worry about eyeshadow fallout with dark colors or shimmer shades all over your flawless foundation that you just spent time doing. Today I'm going to be starting with the Milani eyeshadow primer. And this is a lesson that I learn over and over again when I'm testing out new eyeshadow palettes and glitters and whatnot. Like, I always wish that I started with my eyes, but I never do. Because when I learned to do makeup, I just got in the habit of doing my face first. Now, because I have long nails, it can be hard to get into this inner corner with my primer. So I'm just going in with a brush because that's also where I crease first with my eyeshadow. So like I said, this is going to be a soft glam makeup look, not too bold or too heavy. I really want it to work for any special event you've got going on. So I will be working with the LA Girl Nudie Cutie eyeshadow palette. This is one of two new eyeshadow palettes from the brand that are festival themed. The other one is a rainbow palette called Festy Bestie, which I love. And the shades in here, they're not super revolutionary. It's a neutral eyeshadow palette, but I really do like this formula. But all in all, you should be fine with any neutral palette that you already have. So I'm gonna start out with a base shade all over the lid to set my primer, fill in the fine lines. And for that, I'm going into this romantic shade. It is sort of a light beige. And for this shade, basically what's important is that it's matte and it's somewhat close to your skin tone, maybe a little bit lighter, that's totally fine, but it's not making a huge impact, as you can see. Moving on to a mid-tone shade to use as a transition color, I'm going to be going into this shade called Flower Child, sort of a mauve-y beige. Again, we're not looking for anything too dark or high impact with this color, and that is going in and above our crease. And this is just gonna kind of add a little bit of a rosy halo to our look. Next, we're gonna define the outer corner and our crease with somewhat of like a mid to deep brown shade. I'm really not going for anything too dark with this look. I wanna keep things soft and fresh, which is very on trend this season. So I'll dip into this brown called Main Character. I'm gonna pack most of the color in the outer corner here, where I want the most definition. And then I'll start blending slightly into the crease, moving inward. I'm not gonna bring it all the way into my inner corner. I don't wanna close off the eye like that. I'm just kind of bringing it maybe like halfway in. One thing I love about this palette and why this, as well as the rainbow one I told you about, have been kind of go-tos of mine over the past few weeks is that the formula is just so easy to work with. Like, as far as drugstore eyeshadow goes, this is definitely up there with like Wet n Wild. Very pigmented, as you can see, really blendable and soft. And they are incredibly well balanced between color tones as well as finishes. And now we go back into blend with the same brush that I used for the transition to soften up. I'm really just going for a very well blended look today, which is also really important for photos. Because if your eyeshadow is a little too harsh, it's not softly blended out, then especially with like flash photography, it ends up looking even harsher. And I have definitely learned that the hard way, both prom and my wedding, where there were just some harsh areas that didn't necessarily look unblended when I looked in the mirror, but in photos, it was just exaggerated. So when you think you're done blending, blend some more. The other reason I love this eyeshadow palette and this eyeshadow formula is that I've been blending for at least 10 minutes now, and I'm not losing pigmentation. All right, let's talk about lid shade. This is sort of where you can customize how blingy you want to get depending on the event. For weddings, I would suggest something leaning more shimmery versus metallic and glittery, but for prom, I might say go with the glitter. I'm gonna go for something a little middle of the road because the metallics in this palette specifically, they are a little bit more like shimmers when you apply them dry, which is what I'm going to do, but you also have the option to apply them wet and they become this super foily cream shadow. I'm gonna go into this iconic shade. It is sort of a rose gold champagne. Sweep that onto the lid space where we haven't blended anything onto yet. So you can see we're definitely getting impact, definitely getting a nice glowy shimmer. And as I'm patting this on, I can start to feel a little bit of eyeshadow fallout, which is exactly why we're starting with the eyes today. Now to blend the lid into the deeper outer corner shade, I'm gonna go back in to what we used for the transition, which was this Flower Child shade. And I'm just gonna sweep that in between the two. And that's gonna pull over a little bit of shimmer from the lid and just create more of a blend there so it's not just shimmer, dark shade. Now the benefit to not having done our face makeup yet is that I can go in with a makeup wipe and pick up some of the shimmer fallout. That's another thing that I always end up seeing when I'm editing my videos. Sometimes it does not look like I have that much shimmer fallout, but then I'm editing and with all the lights reflecting, I'm like, whoa, that was messy. So to highlight the inner corner, I'm gonna go into this light pink shimmer shade. This one's called Rhinestones. And I'm just patting that in for a little bit of a pop. So we've reached the point now where I am gonna go ahead and start my face makeup and my brows, and we will return to finish my eyes after those steps. So this next product has become my secret weapon to foundation that stays looking fresh all day and all night. It's the e.l.f. Power Grip Primer. So I have worn this primer to several concerts over the last month. And when I go to a concert, like I'm not playing, I am jumping around, I'm screaming, I'm sweating. My makeup has never looked better. It just still looks so smooth and fresh, not settled. Now this is a tacky primer. You gotta really work it into your skin. It's on the thicker side. And I tend to focus where I notice makeup breaking up on me or settling, which is typically my T-zone, and then I spread out from there. Right now I do have a few active breakouts that I'm also gonna put the primer over because I really want the concealer and the coverage to stick over those spots. So you can see it really does create this kind of like layer on my skin that is going to grip onto the foundation that we put over it. This next step is optional if you have red blemishes that you're trying to cover. I am gonna color correct before I go into foundation. This is the LA Colors Conceal It Concealer, which in my opinion is just a cheaper version of the LA Girl HD Concealer because they're made by the same company. And then the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. So I'm gonna mix those on the back of my hand and then go over my blemishes. This is just gonna help that redness die down. Ooh, that one was angry looking. I find this so much more effective than just putting the green concealer straight on your zits and then hoping that your foundation has enough coverage to cover the green. Now, as far as special event drugstore foundation goes, there's only one that I really trust, and that is the L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear Foundation. This stuff gives such a beautiful, natural finish, very good coverage, and it lasts. I usually wear this without primer at all, and it still looks great at the end of the day. But for special events, you know, you might have a little bit more activity than normal going on, so the primer is only going to enhance the wear. So just blend in that on. Now, if you're super oily, you might want to go for the Pro Matte version of this foundation, but with combination skin, the fresh wear finish is just so much more balanced for me. Now, obviously be a little careful as you go around your eyeshadow. Remember to blend onto your neck. My skin just never looks better than when I'm wearing this foundation. To give my under eyes a little bit of help, I'm gonna go in with the e.l.f. Brightening Concealer Pen. I'm just gonna add a tiny bit of this where I see the most darkness. And again, gotta be a little careful so that we don't blend this into our shadow. Now here is the secret to avoiding cakey foundation. If you're gonna set your foundation with powder, which we are, give your foundation a chance to settle into your skin first. The recipe for cakey foundation is adding powder to damp or unset foundation, because then it creates almost like this pasty consistency that sets on the skin, and it ends up looking thick and it separates in your lines. So while I wait for my foundation to settle a bit, I will be doing my brows with the L'Oreal Brow Stylist Definer Pencil. This is like the closest drugstore dupe I've been able to find to my favorite brow pencil ever, which is the Benefit Precisely My Brow. It's still not exact. I feel like the Benefit one has a thinner tip. But as far as the shade, this is in dark brunette, and the wear time, it's waterproof. They are pretty much the same, and I did feature them in one of my dupes videos. So this is definitely my favorite at the drugstore by far. I'm gonna go in with the NYX Brow Glue. This is the strongest, most effective clear brow gel at the drugstore, but it's a little bit of a learning curve because it is a thicker formula. And unless you want to end up with like a slick back laminated brow look, you do have to go in with a very light hand and wipe off the excess. You do not want to over apply either because it can leave a shiny finish if you put too much on. So I'm really just going in with the lightest touch and the least amount of product that I can, and laying the hairs exactly where I want them. And then I'm not even gonna double dip before going into the second brow. Before going back to my eyes, I will set my foundation with powder. Now, I tested out all of my favorite drugstore setting powders with a flash test because I wanted to see which would create the least amount of flashback. I tested the Honest Beauty powder, the AOA Perfect Setting powder, which is arguably like my favorite ever, the new Physicians Formula Butter Believe It powder, and the Coty Airspun powder. The one that created the least amount of flashback when I applied a pretty thick layer was the Physicians Formula powder. Again, another tip to getting the least amount of flashback possible is to blend softly, blend well, and work in lighter layers. So I'm really just kind of tapping onto the skin, especially over those blemishes, working that up into my eyes. It's those heavy layers that give you the most chance at flashback. And again, you want to avoid a cake face anyway, so you shouldn't be like layering on the powder as if it's another layer of foundation. This powder just gives another layer of smoothing on the skin that is beautiful. Back to the eyes, I'm going to be tight lining with the Essence Extreme Lasting Pencil. Best tight lining eyeliner at the drugstore. It's about $3, does not budge, is waterproof. I am gonna go in with a thin winged liner, if everything goes according to plan, with the NYX Epic Ink Liner pen. My favorite drugstore liquid liner. I really need to redo my video ranking the drugstore liquid liners because this came out shortly after that video went live and it quickly blew everything that I tested away. Now with this liner, because I don't want it to be like a thick line over my lashes, I'm gonna start about halfway in and line outward. And after creating the wing, I'm just gonna taper that line into my lash line very thinly. Thinly, is that a word? Now, as far as lashes go, we're obviously gonna curl them. I am personally on the false lash train when it comes to special events. I really do think they just add that little special something that differentiates a look for a special event. But I'm also of the opinion that if you are not comfortable with putting on false lashes and it's not something that you do regularly, don't try to do it for the first time for a special event. I made the mistake of doing that for prom and I had to restart my makeup over because I got glue all over my lid. Now, whether or not you're gonna put on falsies, mascara is needed, and I do recommend a waterproof mascara just so that it holds the curl, it's less likely to smear or smudge or run. And today I'm using my favorite drugstore mascara in the waterproof version. This is the Maybelline Sky High Mascara. I think especially if you're not gonna do falsies, this is probably the closest you can get with a mascara. Now, if you are gonna move on and do falsies, you can keep this a pretty thin layer since you're not really trying to build up the length with the mascara. Honestly, I think that this looks great if you do just want to go the mascara route because this mascara adds such an impact on its own. Would not blame you for stopping here. But I will be popping on the AOA 3D Foaming Lashes. These are in the style Haley and I have pre-cut them. That's why it looks like this. They come a little long for me. Now these aren't like super thick, dramatic lashes. They're just enough to make my lashes a bit fuller looking and flared. And they're only $155. Technically not drugstore because you do have to order them online, but you will not find the same quality at a better price at the drugstore. All right, let's finish up the face with some contour. I'm going in with my Pixi Natural Contour Powder. This is such an underrated contour at the drugstore. Obviously, Pixi is a little bit more mid-range in price, but when it comes to a contour shade, you really do want to be picking something slightly cooler to mimic the shadows under your cheekbones and in other areas where you're trying to create dimension. And this one is a nice cool brown without being gray. So I'm gonna go ahead and tap this at the lower curve of my cheekbone to create more of a lifted look. I don't want to go in and swipe and really go in heavy. Tapping is going to blend it out really nicely without really needing to do anything. And I don't want to bring that too far toward the center of the face. I'm really not going much farther than like the line under the tail of my brow. This will create that dimension at the perimeter of the face without creating a droopy cheek look from the front. I'm also just gonna put whatever is left on the brush under my jawline. For blush, I'm using the Physicians Formula Matte Minoy Butter Blush. This is in the shade Mauve Mattes. Such a beautiful, smooth looking blush. And what's cool about this is that there are different tones within the compact, and where you place your brush, you can get kind of a slightly different shade depending on what the rest of your look entails. I'm gonna kind of go towards this corner of the blush compact, so we'll get a little bit of that coral in there, a little bit of that beige. Gotta tap off the excess because it's so pigmented. And I'm gonna start that on the apples of the cheeks, very lightly moving upward toward the temples. For my highlight, I want something glowy, but without a lot of noticeable sparkle or glitter. I don't want anything super metallic either. So I'm reaching for the Honest Beauty Luminizing Glow Powder. This is in the shade Midnight Reflection. One of the highlights that comes in the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powder, the one with 3 shades. This is so close. And this is another product that I did a side-by-side in one of my dupe videos with. So I'm gonna apply that focusing right on top of the cheekbone swoop right here around the orbital bone. And you can see that adds a beautiful glow, but it is not adding sparkle or shimmer or glitter, and it's not too harsh either, so it's gonna look really nice in photos. I will go ahead and go at the tip of my nose, Cupid's bow, and if you want, a little bit on the chin and at the forehead if you want just a little bit of extra glow. I'm also going to take this and use it as my brow bone highlight, and this will sort of like blend in to the cheekbone highlight there. I love doing this to just create a little bit more of a cohesive highlighted look. Picking a lip product for a special event can be tough because you probably want something that's long lasting, that you don't have to worry about touching up a lot, but you also probably want something comfortable. At least I do, and that is why I recommend grabbing a Flower Beauty Bitten Lip Stain. I just talked about these in my spring lipsticks and glosses video. I will link that below, but this is easily the best lip stain I have ever tried. Not only does it work, like it definitely gives you long-lasting color, but it is so comfortable and nourishing on the lips, and it goes on very smooth. Sometimes lip stains, they end up patchy or sheer or streaky, but this one does not. So this is in the shade Play, which is kind of like a dusty mauve berry. Definitely adds a noticeable wash of color without being too punchy. This is what one layer of color looks like. You can definitely add a second layer if you want it to be a little deeper. I also noticed that the stain is stronger when you layer it up. If anything, I would suggest layering up toward the inner portion of the lips for eating. If you eat anything with oil in it, you will see a tiny bit of fading in this area, but nothing super crazy. You will still have color left there. And when this sets, I don't experience any transfer at all, and it has somewhat of a slightly shiny finish. It's not matte. And finally, let's lock it all in with some setting spray. This is the Milani Make It Last spray. This will also just kind of refresh the complexion a little bit after we've powdered. If you do want to stay more matte, I would suggest the NYX matte setting spray. This has more of a natural finish, which I've mentioned is like my preferred finish for my skin. And there you have it. This is the Soft Glam Drugstore makeup look for special events. A lot of great products here that you'll also get a ton of use out of aside from special event makeup? I want to know what's on your social calendar this season and what are you most excited about? Tell me in the comments below. Today's shout out goes to Janara. Thanks for being a member of the Slashed Squad. And join me over in this video next where I share my favorite drugstore lipsticks and lip glosses for spring. I'll see you over there. Bye!